Hey, what's going on? I'm Brandon Bain.
Hey, good evening. I'm Dan Folds.
Welcome to Rubbin' and Grubbin'. Thank y'all for tuning in. Please follow us on our Facebook page on Coach's Corner. Also, check out our YouTube channel. Want to say a big thanks to John Henderson for allowing us still to do this at Coach's Corner, center of the universe.
Yeah. So, obviously, the elephant in the room tonight is coronavirus or COVID-19. That has kind of put a stop on any kind of group activity anywhere on Earth. And that's affecting everybody. And we're hoping it gets over with quickly. It has put a pause on NASCAR. So NASCAR, they were going to actually run the race in Atlanta without any spectators, and the drivers cried foul. So they said, oh, well, we're not going to do that. So how long is this delay going to be?
From what I hear, they're saying May 5th or 3rd coming back at Martinsville. I don't know, man. We're going to see. It could be longer than that. I hope it's not. I hope we get back to some racing here real soon. But I guess we're going to play it by ear like everybody else and go from there, man.
I have a lot of confidence that if folks will follow the guidelines put out by the government, that this is going to be something that's going to come up and it's going to taper off pretty quickly.
Hopefully
from
so.
what I'm
point. This is definitely not on them. They're following suit as every other major sport has. I can't blame. Nobody wants to be that first sport that says, hey, we're going to do this, and then the next thing you know, there's 19,000 people that have contracted it.
Right.
So kudos to them. I was extremely disappointed just due to the fact I was set to go to that race, and man, I was hyped up about it.
And you're like $600 into it?
Yeah, I was pretty deep into it, but it was a last minute deal, and that was what was discouraging to me. It wasn't the fact of the race being canceled or the contemplation of running it without fans. It was the last minute stuff.
Right.
If this is what they had planned to do, or this is, obviously they didn't plan to do it. They planned to run the race. But if this was a possibility, I feel like it should have been done a week in advance compared to pretty much the day of when gates are open, and they came out at like 1:32 or 1:38 in the afternoon. Gates open at 2. So it wasn't good, but we're going to make do, and we're going to move on past it, man, and make the best out of it. So
it has definitely caused a lot of confusion and chaos in the town. If you're watching this from overseas, or if you see this from overseas, here in Savannah, Georgia, we have a huge St. Patrick's Day parade, and that parade got canceled. We have a smaller but still sizable parade on Tybee Island, which is our beach, and that parade got canceled. I'm sorry, that parade was going to be on. The Tybee City Council said we're going to have our parade on last Saturday, and then the governor said, oh, no, you're not, and sent the state police out to Tybee Island, from what I hear, to make sure that the parade did not occur. So there was not an official parade, but since everybody was out there, they just went ahead and had a parade anyway.
I was there. There definitely was a parade, and it was a great turnout. A lot of people had a lot of time. A lot of businesses down there obviously made money. From what I heard, words on the street was at 11, the mayor came out and said, we're not going to have it.
We're not going to have a parade.
At 12 o'clock, it was on again.
Yeah.
At 1 o'clock, it was canceled again. You already had Shriners down there. You already had all these floats down there. You had people that had committed that were already there. And they pretty much just said, screw it, man, to hell with it. And had the parade, man. So a little swear bucket going off. We're going to do our thing. But
while he's pulling his money out for swearing, this is our swear bucket, which supports the Ronald McDonald House here in Savannah, Georgia. Anytime we drop the inappropriate word. Anyway, so Brandon, tell me about the Atlanta Motor Speedway Folds of Honor race memories that you have, and how do you feel about your tradition of going to the races?
Yeah, how many years? Just in somewhat recent future has it become Folds of Honor. I mean, it was Cracker Barrel 500 for a while, Napa 500, Hooters 500. Man, like I said last week, I've been going there since I was 5 years old. And, man, I've got memories upon memories. Some of the best childhood memories I have been there, man. I mean, not only was it good to go and see racing, but it was a time for me as family. Like I said, I mean, it was me, my cousins, my uncle, my aunts, my mom, my dad, my great uncle, my grandma.
Yep.
I mean, there was a numerous amount of family, not to mention very close friends to our family that are considered family.
Right.
just a great time as a kid to grow up, great sport to watch and get into. Very interactive. It's one of the only sports I know that you can literally walk up to, your hero. If you can catch your hero out and about somewhere, walking between the garage area and the motorhome area that they stay in, man, you could go shake hands with him, take a picture with him, get his autograph. I mean, how many sports can you say are that hands-on?
Right.
Not to bring it back up, but to go back to the COVID-19, I mean, that's one thing you have to understand about NASCAR is baseball and football and NBA basketball. These guys travel without their families a lot of times, or they have their, kids or, this and that. NASCAR, these guys travel in a group, a majority of them. They have their wives, they have their kids, they have their family staying at the track.
It's like a traveling circus.
Pretty much it is. They travel, these guys have $1 million buses they live in, 36 weeks out of a year.
Right.
So completely understandable to go, okay, we really need to rethink this, obviously. But, very fond memories, man. I mean, they used to have a little RC track in there. I got to race Todd Parrott, who at the time was Dale Jarrett's crew chief. I got to race his young son. So many memories of just meeting guys, meeting, people, great people.
Awesome.
Just great times, man. Great times. Very disappointing, but we'll live to fight another day. So
my memory of Atlanta is that I got to be there with the Airlife Georgia helicopter out of Griffin 2 years in a row. And if I hadn't resigned my job, I was supposed to actually go back the third time, but I got tired of living out of a suitcase. So there's an infield hospital in Atlanta. It's on what used to be the front of the track, and now it's on the back side of the track. And I was able to walk out of my infield hospital back door and just right across a parking lot, come up to kind of go underneath, I guess, what was an old garage, and then come right up to a wall with an opening in it, a single chain across it, because they wouldn't let a normal spectator there. And on the other side of that wall, there were trucks going by me, 170, 180 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And I could walk like this far, which is kind of a little freaky, when you get that close. That is a stunning. If you've only ever seen NASCAR on TV, go to a race. Go to a race and get down up close and personal, and then it'll be something you'll never forget. It makes an impression on you. By the grace of God, I never had to fly anybody out of Atlanta. I'm very glad about that.
Yeah, I've seen a couple real bad ones there that come to my memory that I don't know how they didn't. Steve Park one time used to drive a Pennzoil car, hit the retaining wall that split the track and pit road, and I got to see that car firsthand go by me on a rollback, and it was shredded, buddy. I mean, it was shredded. It's pretty intense. I've seen a couple good ones, man.
It's kind of like you look at some of these cars sometimes and you wonder, how are they not dead? Like Newman's car.
Yeah, and this is,
how are they not dead?
But way before the technology we have now. I can tell you that. But it's definitely different.
That just makes you like engineers, because engineers can figure stuff out.
Yeah.
All right, we're up to the good, the bad, and the ugly. COVID-19 edition. The good. NASCAR postponed the races, and the little blurb is, how can that be good? Well, it's good because while he would probably be okay being exposed to COVID-19, me being 63, maybe not so much. But there's a lot of old people that have compromised conditions, and it would certainly not be good for them. So as hard as it was, and as much money as it's going to cost the organization and all the support organizations, it was the right thing to do, in our opinion.
Yeah.
And they are going to probably make the races up. The bad. So you can probably hear that we got some folks in the back of our studio here, because we're filming a live show. So if everybody just, thank you. I mean, we'd like to invite them to come up and be on camera, but other than that, they can just be quiet, right? Yes. All right. So the bad, NASCAR's initial decision to run the races without fans in the stands. Drivers didn't like that idea one bit.
No, they didn't, and I can understand why. There's a lot of sports I can understand why you would not want to not have fans there.
Yeah.
NASCAR is definitely one of the biggest ones. I mean, it's not like you hear the roars and the cheers when there's a good play or a good shot or this and that, but when you race for 3.5 hours, 4 hours, sometimes longer than that, and you win this race and you get out of your car, and there was nobody there other than a camera to go, hey,
what?
I won, awesome. Definitely, understand it. And that goes to show you how important the fans of NASCAR are to not only the organization but the drivers personally.
Yep. No, I totally get this, and I'm gonna tell. So I was a Chinook pilot in the Army for a long time, and I flew one time. I flew a Chinook leading a flight. Me and a fellow named Dean Brown, who's still teaching Night Stalkers. We left out of Honduras, and we flew all day and into the night and entered up the Chagres River in the Republic of Panama and came to a 90-degree left turn in the river and turned left. And I looked up, and I was looking at a topographical map, and I looked and I saw the hillside that I was going to with Special Forces guys in the back. And I said, Beef, we're going to that hilltop right there. And you got 8 seconds to be there. And we got in there about 4 seconds off. And I mean, it was spectacular. And nobody on earth knew about it. And nobody on earth saw it.
Right.
Except those kids that went down the back, they knew. So we land and we go over to Fort Sherman, Panama. We shut the helicopter down. We get out. Crew chief comes up, he's got a couple beers. He gives me a high five. I give him a high five. Because I don't know if you know this, but if you're an American, you got special operations forces working for you, and they do spectacular things, and you never know about it. You never see it. So I kind of wish that we could have ended that and had, 50,000 people cheering, because it was a spectacular thing. Night Stalkers, by the way, do everything time on target plus or minus 30 seconds. But I digress. All right. The ugly. Tracks not giving refunds, only vouchers. Brandon is out big bucks. Are you upset?
I'm upset, like I said earlier, with the amount of time they allotted for things to change. Obviously the voucher is going to be good for the remainder of this season and the 21 season. So that means, you're able to go to another Bruton Smith owned track, which he owns quite a few of them. The man is worth big bucks. He is one of the best promoters, one of the best track owners. Roger Penske himself. Obviously, they want to make it right. So if you're able to go to another one, go to another one. I unfortunately do not go to another one. I only go to Atlanta.
Are you out? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Are you out money for the RV?
No. So the RV, we got all that squared up with the short notice that we got. Fortunately, we don't own an RV. We rent an RV every year. The guy was good enough that he refunded our money, which big kudos to him. Appreciate that. But what I want to say is for these guys, who this is the one opportunity that they took their vacation time from home to take their 5-year-old son or daughter to this race and see maybe their first race or maybe their second race or maybe something that they look forward to all year long. What I want to say is that really hurts, that short notice. This guy not only took a cut in his financial stuff or vacation time to come down to take a young child or himself or anybody that's
like your dad used to take you.
Right. I mean, that's how we make NASCAR what it is. It's not about me. It's not about you. We're older. Hey, we like it. We're going to watch it. What it's about is let's get this youth generation that's, in 10 years going to be these guys that are 15, 16 years old to go, hey, man, this is my sport. I love this sport. This is what I want to do.
Yes.
And then when they have kids, teach their kids. This is how you build a rapport for a sport. I mean, obviously, every kid wants to play football, baseball, basketball, because it's easy. Not everybody's parents have money to go out and put them in a car or a go-kart or whatever it is to get them started.
Not that it's easy, but it's not as expensive.
No, that's what I mean. It's very accessible.
Right.
Racing cars is something that it's going to take either a very big commitment from your family or a big commitment from somebody to be able to sit down in a car and teach a kid to do this.
Yes.
If it's your love, it's your love, it's your passion. But I feel for the kids. I feel for those kids that this was going to be their first race to go experience at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Mm-hmm. Last minute, got their hopes up, and last minute, it was done.
Kids, hang on. We're going to talk about something in a couple minutes, and we're going to get back into that. All is not lost. All right. So we're up to our, come on, dude. All sports are canceled. NCAA, NBA, NHL, the Masters. Oh, my God. Listen, Coaches is the best place, other than being at Augusta, the best place to watch the Masters golf tournament is right here in Coach's Corner. Yeah. The center of the universe.
That's it.
At that table right there on that big screen, that Jumbotron right over there. I mean, you can smell the grass.
That's it.
Wait a minute. It's not that kind of grass. Anyway, it's crushing that all sports are canceled, but we're going to get through this and we're going to work something out.
We'll make it happen, man.
Mailbag. So we got some questions. So LB, Lawrence Bennett, our producer, who's on the back side of the camera, LB got a note from a fellow, and it said, "Why do you guys suck so bad? Why are you doing this show? Your channel, it sucks." Sir, thank you very much for that positive comment.
Yep.
We're glad you're here.
Yep.
Keep coming back. We're a lot better now than we were once, and give us another few shows and we'll sort it out some more.
Yeah, see, Dan's a little nicer than what I am. I'm just going to say it like this. If you don't like it, don't watch it. And I'm pretty sure you were quoted as saying, our channel, it sucks. And what I'm going to say is probably not as good as your mom. So you don't have to watch. Thank you, sir.
Oh, ow! Smack talk. Okay.
Yeah, I said he used more than one napkin.
Second question from Jim in Dallas. Does NASCAR have a future?
NASCAR has a very, very bright future right now. I've said this numerous times. This is probably the most absolute young talent
Right?
that NASCAR has in it right now that it's had ever. There are more kids that are 20-something
What he
years
said,
old.
I see these kids on TV, I want to hand them a handkerchief to dry off behind their ears.
Yeah, I mean these kids. But don't get me wrong. Let's get these names right. These names that are in this sport, a lot of these kids have done this their whole life.
For a long time.
Their dad has done it.
Yeah.
Somebody in their family has done it, which I love to see because there for a while, let's see, you had Dale Jr.
Yeah.
You know, you had Davey Allison before it. You had, Michael Waltrip carrying on a Waltrip name. You had these guys, these names that have been, Adam Petty, who unfortunately passed away before he really got to show what he could do.
Right.
You had these names of families that were staples in this sport that generations were coming down.
Yeah.
And then it kind of disappeared there for a little while.
Yep.
So what I have to say is this is the most talent we had in this sport in a very long time. Watch it. These young kids are amazing in what they do in today's technology and the way they race these cars. These kids are absolutely amazing.
I got one compound word to say to anybody that doesn't think NASCAR has a future. YouTube. Just Google NASCAR on the YouTube channel. You will be blown away by how many people are creating content about NASCAR on YouTube. And that's not NASCAR doing that. That is regular, everyday schmoes like me and Big.
Yeah.
All right. Third question. How will the shutdown affect NASCAR?
Probably going to hurt. It's definitely, as it does every other sport. I mean, these guys are contracted athletes just like baseball players, football players. Obviously, I'm sure they have perks and contracts like anybody else does, anybody else playing a sport, football players, baseball players.
Right.
You hit X amount of home runs, you get paid.
Right.
You win X amount of races, you get this bonus. You win a championship, you get this bonus.
Right.
But they're contracted too. They're going to get paid, I think, regardless, whatever happens, they're going to get paid. But what I hate it for is the attendance at the track. I hate it for these guys. It's already a little struggling in how many people come out to a race at certain tracks.
Right.
And when this is going on, there's nothing.
Well, what about the small teams?
Oh, the small teams, man.
I got to get ready here.
What I feel like is if you are not losing, if you're not spending any money to go to the racetrack, obviously the logistics of it, the hauling, the getting the cars there, the gas spent, the man hours spent, you're not losing, but you're not gaining.
Sure.
You've hit a plateau where, hey, we're going to sit. We got to sit right here. But there's a lot of teams in Xfinity, man, shorter guys that are going, hey, I've got to lay my guys off. I can't have you at my shop working while this is going on because I can't afford to pay you.
Right.
So obviously it might not hurt now, but when we get back to racing 5 weeks in, 4 weeks in, it's definitely going to hurt. You don't have that R&D. You don't have those engineers that are in there figuring stuff out while we're in a lull.
Yeah.
While these big teams got money to pay guys. So.
Going back to what I was mentioning on YouTube, Dale Earnhardt Jr. has got a spectacular channel. He downloads podcasts.
Yeah.
It's called Dirty Mo, and it's just cool as can be. And he had Kenny Wallace on there for about a 12-minute video. And Kenny was talking about how a lot of these guys don't have a lot of money. Even the guys that you see that are rich and famous now, they weren't like that. And as Kenny Wallace says, listen, we weren't born with diamonds shooting out of our ass. they come up in single wide trailers, they start humble.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I've stated to you before, it's kind of the evolution of the sport. You know, it went from being this thing that's like, hey, you know, word of mouth and then televised on TV, and it's these, you know, backwood guys that came from nothing that, you know, were mechanics on their own cars, that set their own cars up, that worked on their own motors, that you know, put the grime and the blood and the sweat and the tears into it to do it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a multi-million-dollar sport.
Right.
And then you go generations, you know, 20, 30
Now
years
it's
down
a
the
big
road.
deal. Yeah.
Right. And now here we are. Obviously, those days are done. It's kind of like football. Everybody's watching what's going on with the new agreement that they have. We're talking more teams in the playoff. We're talking another game for the season. The sport evolutionizes. It's the same thing every sport does. We're going to go from here to here to here to here. We're going to change as times change. Unfortunately today, unless, which they don't have any of anymore, but you know, back in my day it was Winston Cup. So you had, you know, Smoking Joe Camel cigarettes, you had, you know, Bud Light or Budweiser, you had these sponsors.
Right.
And that kind of got out of it.
Right.
But at the same time, if you're a major multi-billion, quadrillion-dollar corporation, you don't want this guy with a wad of tobacco walking up talking to a camera in his mouth. That's just not what you want. You want this clean-cut young kid that says, hey, did the best we can do. You know, shouts out to so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so and get that plug out there and get that name out there.
I've heard them do that.
Right.
They can rattle off like 12 companies.
And like I said, one of the first ones, Dale Jr. actually does something really cool, man. He takes these young kids and has a class that he teaches people how to give interviews, how to give those shouts out to your sponsors that are helping make your race career possible.
Right.
Because when he came in, nobody did that for you. You're watching this guy over here give an interview and then going, okay, well.
So guys, listen. Obviously, you can tell we're kind of off the cuff tonight because there was no race, and we're like, well, what are we going to talk about? But we're having a good time. Hope you're having a good time with us. Listen, I want to again invite you to please like this post. Like the Coach's Corner Facebook page. When Lawrence gets this edited out, he'll clean it up. And please, if you see it on YouTube, please like that channel.
Definitely follow.
So follow us up on Facebook. So the cheers segment. iRacing and e-Nascar. Now, if you've been paying attention to this, you remember that not long ago, it's going to be a cheers. If you remember not long ago, I heard on this channel right here the first time iRacing, what the hell is iRacing? And William Byron. Because when people talk about iRacing, William Byron is in the next sentence typically. iRacing and e-Nascar. Well, I've been learning about that stuff today. They had a sim race this last weekend. Actually, they have a sim race every week.
Yep.
And we're going to talk a little bit about this because as it turns out, sim racing is what NASCAR has now turned to while we have all the races canceled.
We'll do that.
So, regarding iRacing presentation on TV, if you've never seen one, you can go to YouTube and you can Google it.
Check them out.
Check them out.
Yeah.
It is an unbelievable production, the quality of the production.
Yeah.
I just had it on in the office here at Coach's. I had Caitlin come into the office. I said, hey, look at this race right here. And it's on the computer here at Coach's. And I said, what do you think about this race? She did not know that it was a simulation.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's...
She actually didn't. I go, that's a simulation. Yeah. That's not real. She was absolutely floored. I mean, she had no idea that it wasn't real.
Live commentary.
They've got just
big
like the race.
I will tell you, it is a big deal, man. Like I was saying earlier, from what I've heard through the grapevine this weekend, iRacing, don't know if it's true or not, but I mean, Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, a couple of these big name guys are going to race in this race. Denny Hamlin, I also know, has a lot of ties that are in the e-Racing, e-Nascar, or iRacing. He actually helps sponsor some guys, or I don't know if that's right,
those guys that have teams, right?
He's got big ties. Oh yeah, man, this is something. It's not these names that you see out here on Sunday racing, obviously. It's but there's some big names like guys, you know, that are in there that race every week that are really good talent.
Some of those big names will be racing in a iRace this weekend.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I hear, man.
So and it's going to be on NBCSN Sports Now. I think I looked at. This is going to be on network TV this weekend.
And it'll be a little different, man. It's going to be different. It's not your typical racing. I've watched a couple races online, watched a couple things. It's you know, it's racing. Yeah. It's just not racing, you know.
Well, I get you. So as a pilot, I'm very familiar with simulation, and in aviation, simulators actually save lives because they let guys practice for malfunctions, emergency procedures, inadvertent IMC. There's a lot of things you can do in a simulator that you can't do in a real aircraft, whether it's fixed wing or rotor wing.
One and done.
There are different levels of simulation. There's like the video game that you get, Grand Theft Auto. That was a game that you could get, right?
Oh yeah.
Well, this stuff is actually pretty sophisticated. In the military, they've got remotely piloted vehicles or unmanned aerial vehicles, and America now conducts combat operations.
That's a huge part of our military, honestly.
And when we say, is this kid who's doing iRacing and NASCAR, is he a driver? If he's good in iRacing, is he ever, does he deserve to be considered a good driver? Well, as we were saying, William Byron came up doing iRacing. And he's doing pretty good. He won a Xfinity race, I want to say in 2017.
A lot of Xfinity races.
And then got sucked up to NASCAR.
Craftsman Truck Series, and then got there. But what I do want to state is this. The difference is you cannot simulate nature. You cannot simulate natural occurrences. You cannot simulate temperature. You cannot simulate vibration. You cannot simulate vision.
G-forces.
Exactly. You cannot simulate this. And if you have that kind of money to do that, then you might as well just go ahead and have the money to get in a car.
Sure.
I think it is a very great learning tool for a driver that is already there. For somebody who has come up and put their work in as a dirt track driver or asphalt or whatever, and now here I am and I have this opportunity. Let me sit in this seat in a race for hours upon hours upon hours. Same thing as going out back and throwing the baseball, pitching for hours, throwing the football for hours to a receiver, running routes forever. It's the same thing. It's definitely going to help because the more seat time you have, the quicker you're going to evolve and learn.
Right.
A prime example for that that I always go to is Joey Logano. Okay. Mark Martin said in his own words, he said, this kid is the best thing I've ever seen since sliced bread.
Right.
He said, this kid can drive the wheels off of anything. One of the greatest race car drivers he's ever seen. Gets one of the best rides. 9 years, 8 years, 10 years, wins one race on rain. Wrecked all kinds of equipment. Kid's 29, 30 years old right now.
Yep.
Guess what? It's one of the top names in the sport. It took him 8 to 10 years
took him a long time
to figure out how to learn to manage equipment, get the good equipment, run your car, win races. This isn't something very rare do you ever see a driver with talent hop in and win.
Okay.
Very rare.
Okay.
Do you see a hop in and win?
Okay.
When you see that, you better get on it because when it happens, it's very few and far between.
So, good. All good points. I think that NASCAR is brilliant doing this because what do kids like doing?
Oh yeah, video games.
Kids like playing video games.
Yeah.
And I think that this is the way NASCAR is going to hook a whole bunch of very young eyeballs. And as bad as this CV event is, and as bad as stopping the races, this is getting ready to be a big story. It came out today. It showed up in my Google feed on my phone. Hey, NASCAR is going to do iRacing.
Yeah.
I never even heard of iRacing until you told me on this show maybe 3 weeks ago. This is now going to be national news, and there's going to be a whole bunch of little kids that are going to go, holy crap, I can get a video game and I can be a NASCAR driver.
Yeah.
All right. By the way, going back to about the year 1998, there was a driver, I wish I could remember who it was. I was listening on the radio, and he was complaining about Jeff Gordon, because Jeff Gordon was this kid, and he was really good. And this driver, as he's complaining, goes, well, he's just a kid, and all he's done his whole life is he's played video games. And you play video games and you just do the same thing over and over and over. You get really good at doing the same thing over and over again because you're playing a video game. And I was thinking, well, maybe that, there might be something to that. Maybe doing the video games helped this kid named Jeff Gordon, who's having his last year, or had his last year.
That's called being the GOAT. That's all that is, man. That's called being the best one ever to do it, in my book. And I'll say it loud and proud all the time, man. Doesn't have the championships, but when you look at statistics, it's ugly.
So there was a great video just came out with Regan Smith and William Byron, and they're sitting there, and Regan Smith had never been in an iRacing simulator seat before, and those two guys get in there in this YouTube video, and they start racing, and they're on a track that Regan has driven in a car before, and he's driving around and he hits a bump and he goes, hey, that bump is exactly where it's supposed to be. So
Right.
that goes back to them gathering data, and they actually take lasers and devices out on these tracks, and they scan these tracks. They know every crack. They
Crevice,
make it so realistic. It's
So that started as a piece of technology. What they came out with originally was called a 3-post. And I don't remember exactly when it came out. It's been out for a while now. So these big teams, obviously, like you said, went out and scanned these tracks.
Yes.
And it started out as a like a chassis machine. So what they would do is they build a chassis, and they'd say you're going to run Atlanta in 3 weeks. So they'd take it and they'd put the chassis, and they'd take that information from that laser grid, and they would run that chassis the length of the race, if not double the length of the race. And like you said, it simulates every bump, every crack, everything in the track on that chassis to see what flexes, what bends, what wears, what tears.
Yep.
Make your corrections now before when you get there, you have a part break, your day's done. So it started out, and it was a big deal. There wasn't very many teams. Hendrick had one. Childers had one. I'm sure Penske had one. Roush probably had one. Big names probably had one. But a lot of these guys did not have that information. That's where that started out. And then obviously as simulation racing came in, as far as training drivers, as far as e-racing, it's become a way bigger of a deal than what it was. So it's a very great importance to the sport. So
what they're trying to do, I believe, and I'm going to use a word from my past, they're trying to give you the proprioceptive cues, or the seat of your pants cues. But William Byron did say...
I think that's a swear word. I'm going to throw $1 in there because I don't even know what the hell that word is.
William mentioned in this video, he said you don't have the smell. And actually, he said that it's harder to drive the simulator than it is to drive the real car. Ladies and gentlemen, the Coach's Corner,
Thank you, John.
the father of Coach's Corner.
Technical sport,
John Henderson.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, John.
Now, William,
That's right.
William Byron did mention that with a simulator, there's no fear. You're never.
Thank you for watching. Thank you guys for doing it.
Oh,
Sure,
yeah,
man.
Always. You know that.
There is no fear, and as we say in the simulator world, there's no pause button in a real helicopter.
Right.
All right. Let's talk a little history. Have I ever asked you what your first memory is of a NASCAR race? Did I ask you that already?
No, you said what's one of my fondest at Atlanta.
Okay. What's your first memory? How old were you, and what's your...
My first memory was, obviously, my first race at Atlanta was in '92. And like I've said before, I went with my uncle. My dad came down later on the weekend, but I went with my Uncle Bobby. And I didn't know nothing about anything. I just said I wanted to go to a race. And I also have another nickname that my uncles call me. They call me Buckshot.
Yep.
And the reason they call me Buckshot is because they say first off, I was wild. I mean, I was a wild little kid. Okay?
Nothing's changed.
But they started calling me Buckshot. So he asked me, he said, man, I was talking to him, Uncle Bobby, huge Richard Petty fan, been since he was a kid. So obviously I'm asking, hey, who do I need? Who's my guy? Who should I like? And he said, you see that guy right there? And I said, yeah. And it was Jeff Gordon.
Okay.
And he goes, you see that guy right there? He said, that's Jeff Gordon. That needs to be your driver. That's your guy.
Okay.
So from day one, I've been on that band. I took my uncle's advice, and it just so happened this man turned out to be one of the greatest of all time. That is my fondest memory by far. The Gordon hat, the Gordon shirt, by far, man. I mean, this was to me, this is the greatest NASCAR driver ever.
Okay.
Doesn't have 7 championships, doesn't have 200 wins, doesn't have this, but what he did in the air that he came into it and the way it was is it's unridiculous.
He did for NASCAR
ridiculous.
what Tiger Woods did for golf.
Exactly, dude.
Yeah.
This is the man that took the sport from this level and launched it into outer space. I mean,
young, good-looking kid.
You got 93 wins in a career, 797 straight starts, never missing a race. Once he became full-time at the end of '92 and bam, rookie season, never missed a race. Had kids born, had a marriage, divorce, remarried. He never missed a race. I don't even want to go into top 5s, top 10s, 4 championships. He did it with 3 different guys. Ray Evernham never left for the Dodge money.
Yeah.
Had Ray stayed and been his crew chief, 7 would have been impossible. There's one thing that Jeff Gordon did that I would bet my life that will never happen again in the sport of NASCAR.
And that is?
33 races in 3 seasons. He won 33 races in 3 seasons on a 32 race schedule. That's 4 shorter than what we run now. 10, 13, and 10. That, I will say, that will probably never be repeated.
And you heard it here first.
You heard it here first.
From Big. All right, talking a little history. There's a guy named Kenny Schrader who I've been learning about. Kenny Schrader, if you remember the 2001 Daytona 500, that's when Senior got killed in a crash.
Yep.
And when he was sitting on the grass,
First one to the car.
the guy that hopped out of the car and ran over to check on him was this guy, Kenny Schrader. And Kenny Schrader was recently on with a Junior on one of those Dirty Mo videos. If you've got time, I encourage you to go check that out. Kenny Schrader's 64 years old, I'm 63, and I mean, I just immediately feel this kinship to him, even though I'll probably never know him. I used to feel a very strong kinship with Mark Martin because we're about the same age. Mark is retired. Kenny Schrader is not racing in the Cup anymore, but he's like an Army warrant officer. He is just out there grinding it out.
Yeah.
He races 60 races a year in a car called a modified car.
Yep.
And then he does 45 events a year for his sponsor where he gets in a car that has another seat and he puts a ride-along in there. And I saw a video of him carrying a news media ride-along, and that woman screamed when he let the brakes off, she was screaming until he put the brakes back on, all the way around the track. This guy is
Racer.
Pretty cool. He
That's
is a pretty
racer
cool
at
guy.
heart. That's a racer, man.
He took Junior for a week. Back in the day, he took Junior for a week when Junior was 16 years old, and he got Junior drunk every single day. And then it got better because one night they were between the airport and where they were going, and they went by a topless bar, and they pulled into the parking lot, and they all get in a crowd around this 16-year-old kid, and they're trying to get him into this strip club. Well, the bouncer says no. So they go outside, and Junior's sitting on a tailgate next to a fellow, and he says he sees a gun deal go down, and then pretty quick what happens is the door opens and the strippers come out to the parking lot. Now think about yourself being a 16-year-old boy, and this happens for you.
Yeah.
So there's girls dancing on the hoods of cars, there's girls up on the roof, and they ain't got
our last name wasn't Earnhardt.
they ain't got a stitch of clothing on. So pretty freaking cool. That memory. He was sitting on a tailgate of a pickup truck taking all this in, and he's sitting with this fellow that he doesn't know and then doesn't see him until about 5 years ago. And he goes into a driver's meeting, and here's this guy Carl Edwards sitting there, and he goes, "Hey Junior, come over here, I want you to meet my dad again. You know him." And Junior goes, "I don't know your dad." He goes, "Didn't you ever sit on the tailgate of a pickup truck in the parking lot of a strip club?" Holy crow.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of stories you'll pick up if you start checking out these YouTube videos about NASCAR and history of NASCAR.
A lot of driver stories.
A lot of driver stories, and that makes it human to me. Schrader, when they were talking about the crash, when Schrader was on with Junior, Schrader looks at him and says, "Don't mess me up. You're going to talk about the crash where I found your dead dad. Don't mess me up."
Yeah.
And Junior says, you don't have to say nothing. And I'm telling you, he had a hard time holding on to it.
Well, the crazy thing about it is, not only did that happen, I actually watched that race. Not only did that happen,
so did
but
I.
One of his cars won the race. Junior finished second.
Yep.
So obviously, as people say with the Ryan Newman thing that went down, and everybody gave, Denny Hamlin such a hard time for celebrating on pit road and this and that.
Yeah.
Here we are, Michael Waltrip, and goes through the whole victory lane thing, has no idea.
He had no idea.
Right, you don't know. So
his brother was screaming at him, saying, I was watching it at Lifestar here at Memorial Hospital in Savannah, Georgia. I was on duty. I was a duty pilot. And his brother's screaming at him. You're like, you just won the Daytona 500. Yeah. We had no idea what was going on. And you certainly can't hold anything against Hamlin or Michael Waltrip because, they don't know. They're cut off from that. So I think that I would love it if Kenny Schrader would come to Savannah and race on a dirt race here at Oglethorpe Speedway. So Kenny, if this video finds you while you're still driving the car, man, you would just make our world. As a matter of fact, Coach's Corner will sponsor your trip down here. We would love it, Kenny Schrader.
That'd be a good time.
The old wise man of racing. If you'll come down here, we would love that. I'm getting Gordon. Talk to me.
Checkered flag. Sure. Flip over.
Checkered flag for charity. Let's go back to the checkered flag for charity. We didn't have a winner this week. We're
No.
still on track to raise over $1,500. Please do come by and donate in person here at Coach's and help us to support the Ronald McDonald House. It's a great charity. If you're wondering what's going on with Coach's right now, so in Florida, the governor said all restaurants have to shut down. That hasn't happened here yet. John is doing takeout. You can call in. We'll bring it out to your car. We're doing delivery. We'll bring it to your house. If you get in a jam and you need some help, hey, well, if you remember the old days of TV, they used to have technical difficulties.
That's it. We're back.
We're back.
We're back.
All right. So we were talking about the checkered flag for charity. We are still raising money. As a matter of fact, we had everybody in the store tonight threw money in our bucket, so we've actually got some cash.
Want to make this known, John Henderson is one of the first people to come up here and throw a $20 bill in this thing every week. So there's John's 20, Dan Fold's 5, Lawrence Bennett's 5, and Big, my 5.
Wi-Fi.
And there we are. Okay.
That's
That's the checkered flag for charity. Hey, who is your favorite driver from whatever division you're talking about? Drop us a comment. Send us a message. Tell us who you like and why you like them. So, I mentioned the Oval.
Who's your favorite driver, Dan? Let me just ask you, who is your favorite driver?
Well,
I don't think we've talked about that.
I told you it used to be Mark Martin. If Schrader was still racing, and I've been watching Schrader videos all day long because I'm self-isolating, right? And except with you, I'm right up next to you. But Schrader's not on the big track anymore. He was there from 1983 to 2000. I mean, he was there for like 30-something years. Yeah, a long time.
For a long time.
And he's out there still grinding it out in a different class.
All-time favorite, hands down.
So I'm going to have to pick a new kid. And you know, you introduced me to this kid, William Byron.
Okay.
Who's a tech. I bet you William Byron knows what HTML is.
No, I'm sure.
I bet you he can code a computer.
No, I'm sure.
He knows what big data is all about. He's a smart kid. So I'm just going to go ahead and adopt him. He's a kid.
Like it.
We'll just see how he does. I think he's going to be.
My favorite part about that is.
What's that?
He drives the 24 car.
That's
Whoever
good.
gets in that car is going to win. The kid's going to be good. I'm telling you.
So, the way we talked about coming to NASCAR through iRacing, I do want to mention that Byron, when his dad saw that he was good, his dad said, let's go get you a Legend car. Legends, Bandoleros, Thunder Roadsters, modified dirt track cars. A modified car costs about $85,000.
I mean, Silver Crown, World Outlaws. I mean, we can keep going for.
And the Chili Bowl.
Where they come from. There you go.
What's the Chili Bowl?
Chili Bowl is one of the biggest dirt races in the United States, man. My dad, my great uncle, and my uncle go there. My dad's been a few times. They still go. That is one of the biggest dirt races that you could possibly go in the United States.
Is it a super speedway?
No, it is not a super speedway. It is a indoor dirt race.
How big is the track?
I don't know exactly. I'm going to say
a 32nd of a mile.
Maybe an eighth of a mile. I mean, it's a very short track. But you have some of the biggest names in dirt racing that go there and compete every year because there are so many drivers there. Now, I've never been personally. I've wanted to, just never worked out right to be able to go. But from what I hear, it's an absolute blast. Something you have to see if you're a fan of racing, period. So,
LB, who's your favorite driver?
Smoke.
And that is?
Tony Stewart.
Tony Stewart. And Tony Stewart's going to come back and race a road race, right?
Yeah, at Indy.
He's gonna race
July what?
July 4th.
Weekend, that you were correct
July
about.
4th.
And I was dead ass wrong. I was dead ass wrong because I do not know.
You're good. You're in there for 5. You got about 3 left. So, again, tell us who your favorite driver is. If you think this show sucks, that's okay. Tell us what you'd like to see us do different.
Yeah.
We're having a really good time. Once we get back to normal, we'd like you to come over and join us. We'd like you to sit right here between us, and we'll run 3 wide. Especially if you're really attractive. That will be fine, too.
My wife will not like
Oglethorpe Speedway, ESPN.
All right, the grubbing.
Now, look, I mentioned that you can get food to go from Coach. This is lovely, Caitlin. Honey, come over here. Block my head. That's Caitlin. And this is a Coach's Corner Meat Lovers Pizza. And I want to tell you, this is some seriously good grub.
That is a hidden gem on this menu. I promise you that.
Thank you, baby. I'm gonna set that down. You can order one of these to go. We'll bring it to you if you need one.
Delivery to go.
Delivery,
or
whatever
dine
we
in.
got to do.
That's it.
To make sure that you got some grub in your gut. And let's just see if this is worth eating.
Let's do it.
Let's have a bite.
I'm down.
Oh my God. John Henderson.
Yeah.
That's the best pizza I ever had. That's the Meat Lovers large pizza from Coach's Corner. You cannot go wrong.
That's a good one.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for being with us. We've had a really good time. Have you had a good time? Who are you?
I'm sure eating my food. But right now,
This is my friend Brandon
I'm
Big
Dan.
Bane. I'm Dan Folds. This is Rubbin' and Grubbin'. We're glad that you are with us tonight.
till next time.
God bless you. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Yes!
Yeah,
Robin.
that was fun.